President Trump was on the road in Pennsylvania last night to address affordability, an issue that's dragged down his approval ratings. But at the event, the president reverted to campaign mode, delivering a speech that lasted more than an hour and a half, including a rant about immigrants. To discuss that, we turn now to Democratic strategist Amisha Cross and Republican Tiffany Smiley, a former U.S. Senate candidate in Washington state. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So for anyone who missed the speech last night, the president's remarks, here's just a part of what President Trump had to say, including confirming what he'd said earlier about Haiti and African nations during a 2018 meeting that was later widely reported on. Take a listen.
We had a meeting, and I say, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Adam is here. And what I'm about to show you is something millions of Americans have now witnessed with their own eyes because the footage went massively viral within hours. It raises questions so serious and so fundamental about the fitness of the President of the United States to perform the duties of his office that no amount of White House spin or dismissive talking points can make them go away.
It's going to be a long speech because we have so much to talk about. But Americans like Lakin and Grant and Javier, Joshua, Rocky, Rachel, Kayla, these are great people, and we're never going to forget them. I'll never forget them. I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me, don't I? Huh? But I will not forget them. I'm never going to forget them.
Because what happened at Donald Trump's recent rally in Pennsylvania was not a one-time stumble or a minor verbal slip that every public figure makes. It was a sustained, undeniable, and deeply alarming display of incoherence and confusion that observers across the political spectrum have described as word salad.
I have no higher priority than making America affordable again.
President Trump touted economic wins to a crowd in battleground Pennsylvania and blamed Democrats for high prices nearly a year into his second term.
They gave you the highest inflation in history, and we're bringing those prices down rapidly, lower prices, bigger paychecks.
Speech that wanders from thought to thought without logical connection. That loses track of its own point mid-sentence. That substitutes jumbled phrases and disconnected tangents for the kind of structured communication the leader of the free world should be able to deliver. Let's start with what actually happened in Pennsylvania, because the footage tells a story that words alone cannot capture.
Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime.
Tiffany, he also called other countries, including Afghanistan and Somalia, hellholes. This was billed as a speech about affordability. Is this what voters want to be hearing about right now?
Well, look, President Trump was elected because we had an immigration crisis. We had an open, porous border where illegals, terrorists, criminals, drugs were free-flowing from our southern border into the United States of America.
Trump stood before thousands of supporters and millions of television viewers in a critical swing state and delivered extended passages of speech that lacked any logical structure. He wandered from topic to topic without completing thoughts. He used phrases and word combinations that didn't form coherent sentences. He displayed what speech-language pathologists would call tangential and circumstantial speech patterns, moving further and further from his original point without ever returning to it. And in the middle of all this, he insisted to the crowd that he is cognitively very strong, a claim that struck many observers as not just unconvincing, but as evidence of exactly the kind of defensive awareness that suggests the person making the claim knows, at some level, it's being contradicted by their own observable behavior in real time. What makes this rally footage so significant and impossible to dismiss is that it does not exist in isolation. It is the latest and most visible data point in a pattern that has been documented for months. A pattern of public appearances in which the 79-year-old president has displayed what critics and an increasing number of medical professionals describe as signs of cognitive decline, consistent with changes that commonly occur in individuals of his age. Signs that warrant the kind of thorough and transparent medical evaluation this White House has consistently refused to provide. The Independent reported that Trump's Pennsylvania speech was characterized by rambling word salad delivery, in which he meandered into strange tangents and lost the thread of his own arguments. France 24 noted that as Trump enters the second year of his second term at age 79, his physical and cognitive condition has become a recurring topic of public concern, amplified by viral clips and by the administration's extraordinarily tight control over health disclosures. CNN featured a cardiologist stating that the accumulating incidents about Trump's health justify closer medical scrutiny than anything the White House has been willing to provide, and that the pattern of tightly curated health updates from politically loyal physicians represents a failure of transparency the American public should not accept. Now here's the detail that matters most and that the White House desperately wants you to ignore. The question is not whether Trump had one bad night at one rally. The question is whether the pattern of incidents documented over months of public appearances tells a story about the president's condition that the American people deserve to hear from qualified independent medical professionals rather than from political operatives whose job is to protect the president's image. Every viral clip from every rally is another piece of evidence in a mosaic that becomes harder to ignore. And the refusal of this White House to allow genuine medical transparency only makes the questions louder and the concerns more urgent with every passing week. What strikes me as particularly telling about the Pennsylvania incident is how it connects to a broader narrative of a presidency visibly deteriorating across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The health concerns are not emerging in a vacuum. They're emerging alongside the Supreme Court striking down Trump's tariff authority, alongside Fox News cutting his live feeds because his on-air behavior has become too erratic to broadcast safely, alongside his hot microphone moment admitting he cannot staff his own government, alongside the unprecedented boycott of his State of the Union by members of Congress. Each of these stories individually raises questions about the president's capacity. But when you overlay the health footage from Pennsylvania on top of all those other developments, the cumulative picture is one of a president whose public appearances, policy execution, institutional relationships, and physical condition are all deteriorating at the same time in ways that reinforce each other and create a feedback loop of visible decline. Let's walk through the specific medical questions and how this White House has managed information about the president's health. The Pennsylvania rally is the most recent and most viral example, but it is far from the first time Trump's public speech has raised serious questions. There is a documented history of episodes where Trump has appeared to slur words or struggle with articulation. Episodes captured on video that medical professionals who reviewed the footage say are consistent with conditions affecting individuals in their late 70s that can impair cognitive function in ways affecting speech, decision-making, and the ability to process complex information under pressure. These are not partisan accusations from political opponents. They are clinical observations from qualified medical professionals based on publicly available video evidence of the president's behavior. And the Pennsylvania rally added substantial new evidence because viewers saw extended passages of speech lacking logical structure, wandering without completing thoughts, displaying patterns that speech-language pathologists associate with specific categories of cognitive impairment. The fact that these patterns are occurring with increasing frequency and visibility in a 79-year-old president whose administration refuses independent medical evaluation is something every American should be concerned about regardless of political affiliation. What makes the medical questions surrounding Trump's health so much more troubling than they would be in ordinary circumstances is the extraordinary wall of secrecy this White House has constructed. The standard for presidential health transparency in the modern era has been established over decades through regular updates from the White House physician available for scrutiny by the press and public. This administration has departed from that standard in ways that are both dramatic and deeply suspicious. Health updates come through carefully worded letters from politically loyal physicians whose primary allegiance is to the president rather than to the public, providing far less information than necessary for an informed assessment of the president's fitness. After the 2024 assassination attempt, Trump's team released a letter from Representative Ronnie Jackson, a former White House physician and political loyalist, describing Trump as doing well. That letter set the template. Tightly curated updates from personally loyal physicians, providing favorable assessments through controlled channels without independent verification or comprehensive medical detail that would allow outside experts to evaluate based on actual clinical data. Every health-related inquiry since has been met with the same combination of reassuring but unverifiable statements from loyal sources and aggressive attacks on anyone questioning the president's fitness. Here's why the secrecy matters so much more than the individual incidents. The purpose of presidential health transparency is not to satisfy idle curiosity or provide ammunition for political opponents. It is to ensure the American people and the institutions of government that depend on presidential decision-making have accurate information about whether the person holding the most powerful office on earth is capable of performing its duties. If the president is experiencing cognitive decline affecting his ability to process information, make sound decisions, communicate clearly, and respond effectively to crisis, the American people have a right to know because the consequences affect every citizen. The rally footage from Pennsylvania matters because it provides the public with direct evidence they can evaluate for themselves without relying on curated statements from loyal physicians or dismissive talking points from White House staff. When voters watch the unedited video, they can see and hear for themselves whether the president sounds like someone cognitively very strong, or whether his speech patterns and ability to maintain coherent arguments are deteriorating in ways raising legitimate questions about his fitness. That direct evidence captured on video and distributed to millions is something no amount of spin can counteract because the American public trusts their own eyes and ears more than carefully worded reassurances from political operatives. The comparison to how other leaders have been treated on questions of age and cognitive fitness is instructive. When Joe Biden faced questions about his age and fitness, media scrutiny was intense and relentless, contributing significantly to his historic decision not to seek re-election. Every verbal stumble was analyzed across every media platform. Democrats accepted that scrutiny as legitimate because presidential fitness is not a partisan question. It is a fundamental democratic question the public has an absolute right to ask about any leader regardless of party. The same standard should apply to Trump with equal rigor. But the Trump media ecosystem has been remarkably successful at reframing legitimate health questions as partisan attacks motivated by political animus, conditioning his supporters to dismiss concerns as evidence of media bias rather than observable reality. That systematic reframing has allowed the White House to maintain its wall of secrecy without facing sustained bipartisan pressure for transparency. But the Pennsylvania rally footage is the kind of direct visual evidence that breaks through partisan framing, because it doesn't require interpretation or expert opinion. It only requires voters to watch and make their own honest judgment about what they see. And what they see is increasingly difficult to reconcile with the White House's claim that the president is cognitively very strong and operating at peak mental ability. The health question has the potential to become the single most powerful issue in the 2026 midterm campaigns because it operates on a level transcending normal partisan politics. Voters can disagree about policy, and those disagreements sort along partisan lines. But the question of whether the president is cognitively fit is a threshold question about basic competence that voters evaluate based on what they see and hear rather than partisan loyalty. When voters watch rally footage and see word salad speeches and lost arguments and incoherent tangents, they don't need a policy briefing to form an opinion. They make their own judgment based on direct evidence. Polling consistently shows concern about Trump's age and mental sharpness rising steadily among voters across the political spectrum, including Republicans and independents whose support is essential for Republican candidates in competitive 2026 races. The administration's refusal to provide genuine medical transparency is transforming the health question from a manageable political challenge into an uncontrollable crisis. In the absence of authoritative and independently verified medical information, every viral clip from every public appearance fills the information vacuum with the worst possible interpretation. If the White House allowed a comprehensive independent medical evaluation and released results, that evaluation would either confirm fitness and put questions to rest, or reveal genuine concerns the public deserves to know. Either outcome would be preferable to the current situation where absence of reliable information means every stumble and incoherent passage is interpreted through maximum concern and suspicion. The administration's secrecy is not protecting the president from health questions. It's ensuring those questions grow louder and more damaging every week. The health question creates a uniquely difficult problem for Republican candidates in competitive districts. They cannot defend the president's fitness without contradicting what voters can see with their own eyes. They cannot acknowledge concerns without breaking with a president whose base they need to turn out. When a Republican candidate in a swing district is asked whether the president is cognitively fit, they face an impossible choice. Saying yes makes them look dishonest to voters who watch the rally footage. Saying no triggers political war with the Trump base. Dodging makes them look evasive at a moment demanding straight answers about the most basic question in democratic governance. Every new viral clip makes that question harder to avoid and harder to answer. The cumulative effect of months of concerning footage is creating an environment where the president's health is not a fringe issue, but a mainstream voter concern that Republican candidates will have to address directly whether they want to or not. The health transparency failure is not just a health story, it's fundamentally a trust story. When voters watch rally footage showing a president visibly struggling to maintain coherent speech, and then hear the White House insist with absolute confidence he's in excellent health operating at peak cognitive abilities, the gap between what they see and what they're told creates a credibility crisis extending far beyond the health issue. It makes voters question every other claim the administration makes about every other subject. If the White House is willing to deny what's plainly visible on video about the president's health, what else are they willing to conceal about issues less easily verified? The American people are not stupid. They can see what's in front of them. They can watch a video of the president delivering an incoherent speech and compare it to the White House's insistence he's cognitively very strong. They can make their own judgment about which version of reality is more consistent with the evidence, and increasingly, the judgment they're making is that something is wrong, and the people informing them about the president's condition are not being honest. That loss of trust on something as fundamental as the health of the president is corrosive in ways extending far beyond the health question itself. If voters believe they're being lied to about the president's basic fitness, they will question everything else the administration tells them. Trust once lost on a question this basic is extraordinarily difficult to rebuild, and every new rally, every new viral clip, every new word salad moment pushes that trust further beyond recovery. The footage from Pennsylvania is not just a bad night at a rally. It is another crack in the foundation of public confidence in a presidency running out of credibility to spend.